Hi everyone, I am here with a true story. This one is by Jeannie M. Phelan, not sure how to pronounce the last name, and it is called Holy Laughter. It's a little close, isn't it? Alright. I sat alone at the long table in the orphanage cafeteria and stared at my bowl of oatmeal. I picked up my spoon, but a wave of nausea swept over me. Jimmy. Where is Jimmy? Feeling hopeless at the thought of facing life without my older brother, I put my spoon down. Suddenly I was startled by a blinding light. I turned and stared into the face of a young man, clothed in radiant white and seated next to me. My heart pounded in terror. As I scooted away from him to get off the bench and kneel before him. Don't be afraid. Tenderly, the angel comforted me and told me God sent him to tell me I wasn't alone, because God is my Father in heaven. This glorious man said he was an angel and told me not to bow before him, because we are to worship only God. Then he added, Jimmy is okay, Jeannie. You don't have to worry. Jimmy? God knows about Jimmy? The angel assured me that God knows everything. He promised to stay with me, to help me eat my oatmeal. He told me God was healing me. As he spoke, warmth filled my tummy, pushing the nausea away. I grabbed my spoon and devoured the hot, creamy oatmeal. I scraped my spoon and devoured the hot, creamy oatmeal. I scraped the bottom of the bowl and wanted more. The angel smiled and waited as I ran to the kitchen, where the nuns happily filled my bowl. The angel grinned at me through the serving window. The nuns were delighted to see I was still hungry. They knew about my problem with keeping my food down and my weight loss. This was my first day out of the infirmary since my arrival at the girls' home. The nuns had prayed for me to be healed, and though they weren't aware of the angel, these kind, joyful women knew their prayers had been answered. Born in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1944 to a large Irish family, I entered the revolving door of a foster care as a toddler, paired with my big brother Jimmy, who was 2 years older than I was. My battle with anorexia began in our last foster home, the day I received a tricycle with red and white streamers on the handlebars. Excited, I waited all day for Jimmy to come home and see me ride it. I never rode that trike. I learned at dinner that Jimmy had been sent to an orphanage without me. I choked and gagged on my food. The tight, hard bowl that had pressed down on my tummy all afternoon shot up with a vengeance. The contents of my stomach hurled into my hands and seeped through my fingers with rotten smell staining the white tablecloth. Because of repeated nausea and vomiting, I was no longer allowed to eat at the gracious dining room table. Next, we tried my meals in the bedroom, then in the basement stairwell. But all the hot meals served by my foster mother were eaten and promptly thrown up. I managed to keep down snacks and sandwiches at kindergarten, and my foster mother took me to the doctor due to weight loss. She wanted him to give me a good talking to. The elderly doctor asked her to step outside. He said he was a Christian, and God's love washed over me as he comforted me and cradled me in his arms. He said my eating problem stemmed from my sorrow over losing Jimmy, and promised to pray for my healing. Healing! The doctors' and nuns' prayers were finally answered as God sent my new heavenly friend. When I returned from the kitchen, the angel smiled and asked me to tell him what I knew about Jesus. I told him about baby Jesus being born and sang a few verses from The Friendly Beasts, a traditional Christmas song that talked about animals bringing gifts to Jesus. He enjoyed my singing. I told him other facts about Jesus dying and rising from the dead, but mostly I told him about Santa and the reindeer and the Easter bunny. I finished by saying I preferred Christmas to Easter because I didn't like jelly beans. I can still see his hands moving in front of him as he took my jumbled facts and swept them off the table. He said in a firm voice that he didn't want to talk about Christmas or Easter anymore. He wanted to talk about the cross. Now that was something I was sure I had straight. The Roman soldiers nailed Jesus to the cross. They killed him. The angel looked at me silently, like he was waiting for something. I tried again and told him the mean soldiers were to blame. Jesus died for your sins, he said, as his eyes locked with mine. How could that be, I thought. I didn't have anything to do with it. It was a long time ago, and I wasn't even born then. His eyes penetrated the depths of my heart and soul. I knew that I was known, nowhere to hide. My sin caused Jesus to die on the cross. The Roman soldiers had my help. As I continued to gaze into his eyes, I saw a scene that had happened in my foster mother's home before I was sent to the orphanage. One day she had broken down, cried, and begged me to forgive her for her harsh treatment of us. I had asked if I could see Jimmy again. When she said no, my heart snapped shut. I hate you, I screamed, stamping my feet. I hate you, and I will never forgive you as long as I live. Now as I sat with the angel, I felt ashamed of myself. I hung my head. I wanted another chance with her. Was it too late for me to tell my foster mother I forgave her? I begged the angel to find her for me. He said he went only where God sent him, but assured me God would take care of her. But remember, he told me, all through your life it will be very important for you to forgive others. And about that heart of stone, I jerked up my head. He knows about that? Months earlier, I'd prayed to have a heart of stone so that I would never hurt again. Now I knew God had been listening when I'd uttered that prayer. Jesus can take that heart of stone, the angel explained. I prayed anew. I bowed my head and asked God to forgive me and to please give me a new heart. And I invited Jesus in to live in that new heart. Cleansing tears fell. A huge burden lifted from my shoulders. Jesus now lived inside me, and I would live with him forever in heaven. I looked at my bowl of oatmeal, almost gone. The angel and I watched the nuns clean the nearby tables. They were still unaware of his light that flooded the room with glory. Why can't they see you or hear you? I asked. Why should they? He asked. I told him they were religious, which meant they were holy. At the word holy, the shining angel lost his dignity. Laughter bubbled up. He threw his head back and let out a loud belly laugh. He held his stomach and laughed and laughed. The musical sound bounced off the walls, filling the room with melody, and wrapped me in unspeakable joy. I joined in, feeling as if I were being tickled all over. In my mind, I saw a picture of angels and God's children before the throne being tickled, and I saw how much delight God the Father takes in all of us who belong to him. As the angel and I continued to talk, the angel's long, tampered fingers fascinated me. When he spoke, he waved his hands as if he were conducting music. His skin was translucent, and the radiance that beamed from him lit the darkest corners of the old cafeteria. He looked like he could be a member of the family with blue eyes and light brown hair that fell to his shoulders. I leaned back on the bench to examine the angel's back. "How did you get here? You're supposed to have wings." Wait, let me make sure. "You're supposed to have wings." He burst out laughing again. As I swallowed my last spoonful of oatmeal, the angel disappeared. I didn't say anything to the sisters about the angel. Instead, I ran outside to play. Love for Jesus burned in my heart, and I started to talk over everything with Jesus. I missed Jimmy, but wasn't afraid to live without him. I longed for a family of my own. 3 years later, I received my heart's desire, a visit to Jimmy and adoption. I kept silent about the angel for 40 years, but through the years of marriage and raising children and helping with grandchildren, I've learned to settle my accounts quickly. That was the lesson I learned as a 5-year-old the day the angel came to help me eat my oatmeal, the day God set me free to forgive. Thanks to God's ministering to me through his angel, I've learned the truth of Colossians 3:13. Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you.